Good morning, 8th graders. Just wanted to let you know that I am home today because, well, it's actually nighttime right now. It's about 11:30 at night on Monday the 7th because I am pretty sure I tore my ACL playing soccer last night. I know I told some of you that I play in a soccer league on Monday nights, and tonight didn't end up so well. So I'm doing my best to prepare you for your test today to make sure that you're all set and ready to go. So I'm going to go over the warm-up. Hopefully you tried it on your own, and then I'll do one other quick problem before you take your test. I want to give you as much time as possible. You may need it, you might not, but I want to give that time for you if you do. So first, it says solve the equation by graphing. So if it says that, yes, you do need to graph it. Solve means in the end, we're going to figure out where does it cross the x-axis. A lot of the steps we're going to take are the same on all the problems. The only extra step is figuring out where does it cross. So if it just says graph, you don't need to find where it crosses. So to begin with, we're going to find our axis of symmetry where our graph will fold in half or be symmetrical. In that equation is x equals negative b over 2a. And if you don't have a note card and need one before your test, I think I ran out of the note cards that are in my desk, but whoever's subbing, there are note cards in my top drawer of the stack of drawers on the left side of the classroom. Otherwise, we're going to plug in negative b over 2a. Reminder, a is our number that's in front, that would just be a 1. B is in the middle, that's 6, and c is that positive 8. If any of these were negative, that negative would go with it. So we have a negative b, and b is 6, over 2 times a, and a is just 1. So this is 2 times 1, which is just 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So on our x-axis, negative 3 is our axis of symmetry. So that's where our graph is symmetrical. It's going to fold in half on that line. Now we know that x is 3. We can plug this back into our equation for x to find y. So we have x squared, or negative 3 squared. Remember, your calculator doesn't know that that needs to be put in parentheses, so you need to know that's negative 3 2 times, not 3 2 times. Plus 6 times x, and x is again negative 3, and then plus 8. So first I'm just going to do our order of operations. That's where some people forget. You have to do your exponent first before you multiply or divide. If there was a number out here, some of you are trying to multiply first. No, no, no. Always do your exponent first. Negative 3 squared, negative 3 2 times is just 9. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18, and then plus 8. So 9 minus 18 is negative 9, and negative 9 plus 8. There's more negatives, there's just one more. So negative 1 is where we're going to plot our point on our y-axis, up and down, but on our axis of symmetry. Because we really have the point x, which is negative 3, and y, which is negative 1. So at negative 3, we're down 1. There's our vertex. And our last point that we can plot is 0, c, because if we plugged in a 0 into our equation, 0 squared is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, so all we have left is 8, or c. So our point 0, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, uh-oh you guys. You can make your graph go by 2's if you would like, or you can make your graph extend 1. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I'm just going to make it go by 2's. If you didn't do that and made it up here, that's totally fine. And we are 1, 2, 3 squares away from the axis of symmetry, so 1, 2, 3 on the other side. There's our nice parabola. Make it a nice curve. And remember, because we have this word solve, we need to figure out where does it cross the x-axis. I'm going to just test a point. Mine looks like it crosses really nicely at negative 2. Remember, left and right I went by 1's. So I'm going to test that point into this equation to see if it works. So we have x squared, or negative 2 squared, plus 6 times x, which is negative 2, plus 8. So negative 2 squared is really just positive 4, because it's negative 2 times. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And then plus 8. Well, 4 minus 12 is negative 8, and negative 8 plus 8 does equal 0. So this is where y reaches 0. So this is one of our two solutions. One of our answers is x equals negative 2. And if this is 1 square away from my axis of symmetry, it's 1 on the other side as well, which would be negative 4. So those are our two solutions. Let's do one more quick problem. Everything we did from 10.2 was just finding your axis of symmetry, plotting your vertex, and these 2 points. 10.3 was adding our solutions where it crosses the x-axis. So we just did 10.2 and 10.3. Now we're just going to do super quick one problem from 10.1. I'm going to graph y equals negative 2x squared plus 1. So I'm going to throw a graph on here quick. Oops, where are my graphs? Alright, here we go. So if we follow the same steps we did before and find our axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a, we need to be careful. We have ax squared and we have c. We don't have a b term, so this would be minus nothing. There's no x here. So it doesn't matter what's on the bottom. It's going to be 0. So our axis of symmetry is on the y-axis. So there's our axis of symmetry. The only point we have to plot is 0, c, which is really 0, 1. Now there's no other points to reflect on here, so what we did at the very beginning in 10.1 was instead of finding our axis of symmetry and our vertex, which is fine, you can do that, but you'll just get stuck, is we made a table. So the first couple questions on your test, when they say graph this and compare to y equals x squared, this is where we just made a table. Negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So if we plug in 0 first, remember exponent first, 0 squared is 0, times negative 2 is still 0, plus 1 is 1, which we technically already graphed, 0 up 1. Then if we plug in a 1, order of operations again tells us to do our exponent first. 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And a negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Same thing on the other side. If we have a negative 1 squared, again, positive 1, times negative 2 is negative 2, plus 1 is negative 1. And then last, plugging in a positive 2. 2 squared here first, exponent first is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. So we plotted this one already. I'm going to plot 1 down 1 and 2 down 7. If you're just watching this right now or adding to your note card, that would probably be the best idea. So we graphed this. Oops, that was a little off. Ooh, do your best job here. This would give you the most points, except it said the word compare, so you need to describe a couple things. If you want to graph x squared, you can. 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. Plugging in a 1, a 2, and a 0, 1, and 2 in for x here. And reflecting it across the other side. This is our x squared function. So the things that we compared first, which way does our graph open? The arms of our graph of the new one open down. That's one thing. Next, we decided, is it a stretch or a shrink? Now, a stretch would be anything when a is greater than 1, the number out front. If a is less than 1, it is a shrink. And remember, the negative just tells us if it's going to open up or down. Positive or negative. So we really don't care about this negative here. We just care about the number 2. Since 2 is greater than 1, our graph got skinnier. It got tall and skinny. If it shrunk, it'd be fatter, like something like this. Okay, we didn't have that. So we know this was a stretch. You could write by a factor of 2. We took all the points, multiplied them by 2, and then they flipped upside down. that opening down simply tells us that this was a reflection. Like looking in the mirror, it flipped, you see the opposite. It's now down instead of up. And last two things, your axis of symmetry. Our axis of symmetry was right in the middle, or when x is at 0. And then last is our vertex. Is it a maximum or a minimum? Well, of this red graph, it's the highest point, so that's what we call a maximum. And what is that point? X is 0 and y is up 1. There's our maximum value. That's 0, 1. So those are the four things you need to compare to. Oopsies, whoa, that was crazy. There you go, comparing to that graph. So, if you get stuck, make a table, always. Otherwise, the steps that we followed earlier, finding your axis of symmetry, plugging it back in to find y, that'll create your vertex, this point, and then plot 0C and reflect. If they ask you, there's two questions where they ask you to solve, that's the extra step of figuring out where does it cross the x-axis. Alright, if you have any questions, please ask the teacher or write some things down in your note card, talk to your neighbor quick before we start. The only things that you should have on your desk should be the folders that are up on the front to block your work from your neighbor, your note card, pencil, calculator, and the test. I believe the test is green. It's in the first slot next to my computer. Good luck!